Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa here on France 24. I'm Clarisse Fortuné and these are the headlines. A meeting that should have been a breakthrough will not take place. M23 rebel group says it will not attend Tuesday's peace talks with the DR Congo government. A last-minute decision that comes after the EU imposed sanctions on the M23 group leader and on Rwanda army commanders. Almost at the same time, Kigali cut diplomatic ties with Belgium. We start with the diplomatic efforts to put an end to the conflict in eastern DRC. What should have been a major breakthrough, Congolese government meeting the M23 rebel group in the first direct negotiations, has now been on hold. At the last minute, the M23 has pulled out, but DR Congo says it will attend Rwanda peace talks on Tuesday despite the snub. Emmett Livingston in Kinshasa has more.
It was supposed to be a momentous step, potentially pausing the fighting in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The Congolese government had agreed to meet representatives from the M23 rebel group in Angola's capital, Luanda, for face-to-face talks on Tuesday. Congo had for years refused to negotiate directly with the M23, which is supported by thousands of Rwandan troops, arguing that it must instead negotiate with the rebels' masters, Rwanda. The government eventually agreed to talks after M23 and Rwandan forces captured eastern Congo's two largest cities in a violent offensive that started in January. The M23 has repeated since it launched its campaign in 2021 that it wants direct negotiations, and it initially agreed to the talks on Tuesday, but on Monday evening it pulled out, citing international sanctions as undermining efforts to solve the conflict. On Monday, the European Union sanctioned 9 people for their role in sustaining conflict and minerals trafficking in eastern Congo, including the president of the M23 and 3 senior Rwandan military commanders. African and Western diplomats hoped that direct talks might at least pause the devastating fighting in eastern Congo, which has continued in the province of North Kivu in recent weeks. The prospect of the fighting coming to an end now appears dim.
And one of the reasons given by the M23 that prompted the boycott is the EU new sanctions against several Rwandan officials over Rwanda's alleged support for the M23 armed group. Almost at the same time, Kigali cut diplomatic ties with Belgium, its former colonial power from 1920 to 1962. Rwanda had already suspended Belgian development aid programs on its territory back in February. Our correspondent in Kigali, Juliette Montilli, tells us more.
Belgian diplomats have been given 48 hours to leave Rwanda, marking a complete breakdown in diplomatic ties between the two countries. In a statement that signals the height of tensions between Kigali and Brussels, Rwanda's foreign ministry accuses Belgium of unfairly siding with Kinshasa. Speaking at a rally in Kigali yesterday, President Paul Kagame had already lashed out at Belgium, blaming it for spearheading international condemnations against Rwanda over its alleged support for the M23 offensive in eastern DRC. But this latest statement goes even further. It points to Belgium's colonial past, accusing it of fostering ethnic extremism, which, according to Kigali, not only led to the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis, but continues to fuel instability in the region today. The decision comes just as the European Union announces fresh sanctions targeting Congolese officials linked to M23, as well as 3 senior Rwandan military officers and the head of Rwanda Mines Board. For his part, Belgium's Foreign Minister Maxime Prévost has responded on X, calling the move disproportionate and saying he regrets the decision.
And yet diplomatic efforts had already started this Monday. Zimbabwe hosted a joint meeting with the East African Community and the Southern African Development Community to discuss the escalating conflict in eastern DRC. The meeting follows the recent SADC military's decision to end its mission there. Sharon Mizengio attended the event in Harare.
The Eastern Africa Community and SADC joint meeting called for the immediate ceasefire and said that the peace talks on the 18th of March are the only way that will bring peace to the DRC. The joint meeting also noted the rise of the humanitarian crisis in the DRC and called for intervention from the international community.
It is important that we have an immediate ceasefire and that all parties converging at the table for talks are the only potent options to bring sustainable peace in DRC.
There was also noted talks about the withdrawal of the troops. The date of the withdrawal of the troops wasn't mentioned, but there was talks for cooperation and support to avoid any further damage.
I would like to really call for cooperation and support as this phased withdrawal of SADC mission commences. We would not want to leave a vacuum that generates even more problems.
The joint meeting ended with calls for peace and urgent calls to address the humanitarian crisis in the DRC.